There's just, oops.
Coming out down there at the same time.
So, Allison, am I following you or am I following?
Why don't you follow them?
Okay.
Ellen's the one that's been working down there.
Okay. On tonight's Unalaska This Week, UCTV takes you to the Whistlow excavation project underway on the shores of McLeese Lake. The site lies on the northern tip of Unalaska Island, about 7 miles northeast of the city of Unalaska. There is just one easy way to get to the dig, and that's by water. Our first attempt to visit the site was with a chartered vessel, McCushion, skippered by Dennis Robinson. Together with Bruno Marino, a plant fossil specialist from Harvard University, we made our way past Reese Bay and into McLeese Lake. It was a sunny day, but we were turned back by the choppy shoreline at the site. Pen Air flew UCTV out on their Goose the next day, and luckily skiff landing conditions had improved.
This is the most priority. Pilot bread. Pilot bread.
30 boxes!
Beer! 30 boxes?
Did they say beer?
Beer! Did you see
This
the
is
message
going on
in the
tape here. What?
In 1984, a group of about 4 of us visited the site very briefly. We stopped in with a helicopter and spent about a half an hour at the site just looking around and seeing it for the very first time. We had read about the site in historical documents, so we knew there was a site there, and we found at that time this really long house, actually a pair of very long, unusual houses. These are houses about 100 feet long or 125 feet long, the longest one is, and they have a series of rooms down along the main axis of the house on each side of each house. So these were very unusual Aleut houses that we were seeing. We decided that this was a site we'd someday like to get back to. So in 1986, we went out to the site for about 4 weeks and brought a group of about 6 or 8 students with us who worked there with us for that time, and we did some intensive testing of the site, different areas of the site, but especially the house. Based on that work, we returned to the site in 1988, a group of 7 of us, for just 10 days to do even more specific testing of the site to find out some basic questions about how deep the site was and how much energy it would take to do a large-scale excavation. And that's what we're involved with now, a large-scale dig this summer, 1989. We have a group of about 22 people altogether. We're spending 6 weeks out at the site and doing some very large-scale excavating of one of these 2 big houses. We're also doing some testing at a site across the lake, at McLeese Lake, and doing testing in older parts of this site. The houses are probably date to the early Russian period, to the late 1700s. Some other parts of the site are much older, probably on the order of 1,000 or 2,000 years, or maybe more. And the site at the lake is maybe, we don't know how old it is, but it could be several thousand years old. We're just not sure yet. We haven't dated any of that material.
Years ago.
Right.
And we put a fair amount, put 2 people a day for several days out on the business, and fully multiplied food on the site, but everybody here is going to go to that.
Let's go whole hog on this one now.
Techniques depending on kind of how much time we have and what we're digging through. Sometimes when we're doing testing, we dig a little bit more quickly just to get down through and do a preliminary look-see at what's there. When we excavate more carefully and have more time and know what we're likely to come up with, then we use smaller tools like trowels and dig more carefully, more slowly, and save more things perhaps. So the testing that I described was generally small holes in the ground, maybe a half a meter square or a meter square, which is about 3 feet square, and not a large scale excavation spread over a lot of ground.
And stand up here, you can see the extent of the longhouse. You can see just where the dirt path goes off into the woods there. That's one end of it, and behind this tent is another end of it. And it sort of makes this cockeyed L. It sort of comes down off there around here.
There's a mass fly on my lens, okay.
And then there's this huge expansive house all the way down to the far end there where all the pegs are, and then it makes a jog, another L shape up going to the north. And then you can see what we've done is dug through the sod that was the roof and are trying to expose down to the beach cobbles, which is what the Aleuts would have built their house on. And in the central area you can see that's the that's the original beach ridge right there. And then they probably lived right on this surface of cobbles right now. We've got a real nice organic mat of grass that we're finding just above the cobbles, so we know they were bringing in grass and stomping it down to step on so that they had a comfortable floor surface to live on. If you come over, I can show you some of the structural features. What we got? This is the floor that we're
Is there a
standing
place
on.
I shouldn't stand?
It's okay. It's fine. The cobbles, we've been walking all over them. Let me uncover this unit because this is the best of the bunch.
Oh, wow.
And this rib here, these ribs in here, these long ones are the ribs, and then this one that's laying up underneath is a maxillary bone from the roof of a whale's mouth. You can see there's a stone lamp sitting right there underneath that bone. And this wood that's laying in here is probably structural supports for the ceiling of the house. So the sides and the roof would have been made of whalebone, and they'd stack the ribs up like this and then lay the wood and the whalebones across the top and then sod it over the top with all this big wonderful grass we've got. And so when it collapses, this is what it looks like, the whalebone that we've got here. And what we're thinking are these verts that are lying along the sides are the support pieces for those big cross beams. So, I mean, there's some beautiful whale ribs right up there, the whale vertebra. We have two big ones laying there. And then you can see there's a lot more bone coming out right where the bucket is and the trowel. There's big pieces of bone coming out there. And this piece down in here was dug out for a burial. And we had one in there that we've dug out, but it's a nice big pit. And then down at this end of the house is where the midden was, and we can go down there and look at, there's just huge piles of bone coming out everywhere.
Let me ask you, do you all have just a few minutes and we get everybody out on the pit here working?
I have, I guess 30 minutes before they'll leave me.
Okay.
So,
If you
yeah,
can
sure.
give us a chance to get some of the folks out.
Okay.
It'd be a great thing if we could get
pretend
some
to work.
footage later on.
Let's pretend to work, yeah.
That's all we ever do, but
You all sit on bail just for a couple of minutes. Let's 5 minutes, get a lot of folks on the side
Here.
out here.
How often do you get mail? Do you get mail only when people come out?
Just whenever people come out, which has been about every 2 weeks now.
After
So,
you describe the air show
And,
in Ottendorf Air Force Base.
When, do Aleuts always bury their dead?
that seems to be the way of it, yeah. For this house, we have 3 different ones. There was a burial in here, and we have 2 back over here in another ancillary pit that we've been looking at.
Do you think this house is specially built for burials?
No,
No.
no, they were living in it. The way we think right now is that they were living in this house, and after it was abandoned, they came back in and buried this person in the house. The chances are really slim that they'd actually live in the same house where someone was buried. But because of the way the floor, when we excavated through this depression here, because of the way it looked, we were almost convinced we were down to the floor. There were a few rocks above it, and then we pulled out some rocks, and there the person was just laying right in there. So we think that they just came back into this abandoned house, dug a hole, and put her in there, and then covered her back up again. So, but we can wander down there if you want to look when they get back to start working again. You know, there's a lot of really neat sections to look at here in the house. The best thing is the bone that we're coming up with. That's the structural features. We have wood posts sticking up out of the ground that are probably where the roof would have been supported, or where sleeping platforms would have been resting on. The platform would lay like this, and the wood post would come up and support the different parts of the house, that sleeping platform.
We have newspapers from last
pretty neat.
Okay, everybody.
I'm hot.
Did you get a nice picture of this lamp here?
Did you get a
I mean, this is not him. He hasn't had a bath. This is probably the best feature right now that we've got that you can see. The bone in the stone lamp. The lamp is really nice. It's just laying right in there, and you can see where it's been charred. This is some burn material. Where it was being used, there's a little bit of charring, you can tell where it's been burned, and there may be some of the original oil and things still left in there. And we're hoping that we can take that out and analyze the oil that's left and find out exactly what kind of sea mammal was being burned by looking at the oil.
If you want to stand over there, you can get a good view of.
Now this is a whale stove?
Skull.
Skull. And is this part of this isn't part of the house, or it is?
Yeah, part of the same house, just the other end of it.
The house goes all the way from that end, right down through where they're digging, right down into where you're standing, and then up into this area. And back into this whole area, which is not excavated yet. Down the sides of the houses, there are these pits. Here's one. This is probably a room off the main part of the house. Some kind of compartment. There's another one. There's several of these down each side of the house, here and down that side. Going out to search for fossil plants, which we will then use to reconstruct the climate. And we hope to use this climate information to study how culture may have interacted with climate change, particularly in the high northern latitudes, where certain types of climatic change are particularly exaggerated, at least compared to climate change in the mid-latitudes. What I hope to do is find fossil plants which are being recovered from the excavations and use those fossil plants in a type of analysis which allows us to infer the composition of the atmosphere, specifically the quantity of CO2 in the atmosphere, which is very much related to the climate system. CO2 is a greenhouse gas, and as such has the ability to trap solar radiation and change the dynamics of the meteorological system. So our approach is to come to the high northern latitudes where we expect to have an exaggerated climate signal, go to archaeological sites, find specific plants, take them back to the laboratory and analyze them, then use computer programs to generate models of what the climate might have been during certain periods of time. Then go back to the archaeological record and see if we can test hypotheses about change in the archaeological record as it might be related to climatic change, where we're using stable isotope ratios in fossil material to infer atmospheric composition in the past. And this trip to this site represents our first foray into fossil plants in the high northern latitudes. And I don't know what I'll come back with, but it'll be a start to find out what the area is like, what sorts of fossil plants might be available, how difficult it will be to obtain them, etc. One thing this area has going for it is the preservation in many of these sites is usually extremely good. So we're hoping to be able to recover plants and take them back for analysis.
Well, you want to find out how long it took to change to this climate, so that you can predict maybe in the future how long it might take to change again,
Well,
or are you just interested in dating things?
No, it's a very interesting point you bring up, actually a very important point. One of the aspects of this research, which is relevant to work that our group at Harvard is doing in the Department of Earth and Planetary Sciences,
is in fact trying to reach back into the very near past and have some clear and concise picture of climate change. And use that information to look ahead to the very near future and see if we can gain some unique perspective on how things have changed over the short run of the past, and use that to look at how things are going to change in the future. Clearly they will. And the levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere now are higher than they have been in the last 200,000 years. And we know this from studies on gases trapped in ice cores drilled in Greenland and in Antarctica. Clearly man is changing the composition of the atmosphere in a very direct and in a very direct way, and clearly far beyond some of the concentrations that the atmosphere has seen over the last 200,000 years. So we're exceeding the natural limits of some of the trace gases like CO2 that the Earth has known for 200,000 years. I don't think we can expect that things will go unaffected. So while we're interested in looking at climate-culture interactions, this is also a project where we hope to clearly demonstrate climate change in the near past and perhaps use that data somehow to help us study projected changes in climate over the next several centuries due to fossil fuel inputs of CO2 in the atmosphere.
Down to actually it's below a sterile zone about 60, 70 centimeters deep.
This is very similar in color to what we got down at that other end, down below all the large rocks.
Oops. We are spread everywhere up and down this beach.
Okay. This is where you guys are just hanging out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is where we live. Half of where we live.
Half of where you live?
Yeah, the other half of us are back up that way. And so, but the site's over here.
Okay.
Well, aside from the nice salmon dinners that we've been able to enjoy up there, and the nice visitors from town who have come out and brought us treats now and then, let's see. Well, a little excitement one night when it really blew up was we had this special dome kind of structure that is sold for a greenhouse and a tent type of thing from some outfit in California. And it kind of exploded one night in the big wind and flew over the tops of a bunch of tents and landed on the other side of camp. So that was an unusual night. That happened in the middle of the night. We had to go fetch this thing before it flew into the Bering Sea. I don't know. Let's see. We've had a few fox visiting camp, and there are eagles around. It's just a nice place to camp. And a lot of people have been out to Whistler from town here and know that it's a real pretty place. And, the flies are the only real problem, the black flies out there. It's the most fly-infested place I've ever seen in the Aleutians. So we have to wear head nets a lot of the time just to keep the flies off of us.
Well, yes.
But if you want to follow me and then take a picture. I didn't even notice, Al, did you get the message about paper plates? Well, I didn't even look. I had my eye to the camera coming in.
Yeah, I didn't know if you could get the elevation to do it, but yeah, Stephanie and I, we go ahead now.
I can describe to you what's going on. This is our water stream. We have a pump down at the lake, and then we take certain buckets of dirt from each square that we dig, and we wash the dirt. And the dirt washes through the screens, and the goodies stay up in the screen. If you want to come up close, you might be able to see the kinds of things they've been finding here. Just watch yourself, it's a little muddy here. But you can just, maybe you can get right up there. If you don't splash her, you might be able to, oh, you actually made a fine.
You're doing trash. Here we go.
Yeah.
That's a bead?
That's bead.
What might they use for jewelry, decoration, or?
Yeah, and on clothing? Decoration.
Not so much on clothing, but off the tops of their little hats. Which we haven't seen, but...
mosquitoes aren't getting you guys anymore? Getting to you?
No, only in large swarms. Not too bad right now.
Has this been pretty much what the stream's been pulling up? Little beads and I see seashells in here.
Yep, little bone pieces, flakes, a lot of flakes.
Flakes those are from making arrowheads.
Right, of either obsidian or basalt.
And then occasionally a whole point or something will
Really?
come out. It'd be interesting. We found a stone lamp. It was just a little rock with an indentation in it.
And that was down, is that the one that's down in the house that I saw?
No, that's a bigger one.
It was one that was about that big. Is all.
Are you some of the students that are getting credit for hanging out with the mosquitoes?
Yes, we are.
How are you liking it so far?
Great.
Yeah, I'd say we probably all just love it.
Let's go whole hog on this for now. Have some footage of people out here doing it, so I'm glad you showed up.
No problem. No problem at all. I'm just going to take one more sweep here. Can I flip?
For the good time, this is a project that's funded from a number of sources and sponsored by a number of agencies. I am one of the professors involved with this. There are 3 other professors who are organizing this group. Dr. Gene Eidner from the University of Alaska in Fairbanks, Dr. Lydia Black, also from UAF, and Dr. Alan McCartney from the University of Arkansas. Those 3 people and I are the directors of the project. And we have support, as I said, from a lot of people. The major funding comes from the National Geographic Society, the National Science Foundation, and the National Endowment for the Humanities. With about 22 people, major excavation, one of the largest ever done out here in the Aleutians. And next summer we'll come back to do more work at that site and maybe some others. The Aleutians, 2 of our group coming out to the Aleutians since the early 1960s. I've been coming out here with my wife Mary since the early 1970s, since 1971, and we wouldn't be coming back out all these years if we didn't enjoy it a whole lot.
You come out in the summer only though, right?
We come out in the summer only,